Does it ever get really like convoluted and like really confusing? Like, mixing, like the whole Magic is just, the focus is just lost.
This is something that a lot of people are concerned about at the moment. It's like called product overload is what it's been colloquially known as.
There's a lot going on.
So much.
It's ridiculous. And we have spoken about it on our podcast before that we think Wizards need to slow down because they're overwhelming people coming into the format because there's new cards coming out all the time. And you need to find out, okay, does this go in my deck? And then if you've just built a deck and you're like, right, I'm really happy, I'm going to go to the game store and play with this deck. When you get to the game store, one of the people will be putting up a new poster for a new set. And you can see on the previews that there's a card that needs to go in your deck now and it's not even out yet. And you're like, how am I meant to keep up with all of these products?
Yeah. It's a lot. I think for us, well, at least for me, like I had a time about 6 to 8 months ago where I was feeling really burnt out with just Magic, full stop. We were making the podcast, probably, added to it. Like it's a lot of work to put a podcast together, as you guys would know. But also we were playing a lot of Pauper, we were playing a lot of Commander, and it just got to a point where I was like, there's just too much going on. And I just had to like strip it down. And that was kind of the way that I fixed it. Is I was like, okay, I'm just going to play these 2 formats. I'm not going to think about anything else. I don't have to know every single card, what it's going to be when it's released, because it's happening like literally every month. There's new cards coming out. I don't have to keep up with all of that stuff. And the podcast can just be weekly and we can just like chill out about it. And like, that's more than enough stuff.
All right, you let me know when you want me to go. I'm assuming it's already recording. Yeah, it's already recording. Yeah. Just like deep breath.
It's already going.
Hey guys, welcome back to another Palms Off Gaming podcast. Today I'm joined by Walt James from the Get Commanded podcast. So thanks for coming in, guys.
No, thanks for having us.
Before we get into it and do the formal introductions, just make sure that if you need any trading card accessories, hit up your local game store, see if we're in stock there. Do that as your first point of call. Please support your local game store. But if we're not there, head on over to our website and you get Toploaders, binders, sleeves, everything. So introduce yourself and tell us what you do and where you're from and shamelessly plug yourself.
Oh, we're very good at the shamelessly plugging ourselves.
You are very good at the
I'm very good at it. I'm James. This is Walt. We're from the Get Commanded podcast. We have a weekly Commander-based show, and if you're not familiar with the Commander format of Magic the Gathering, it's one of many. It's the best format of Magic. It's a multiplayer format.
The most popular format of Magic the Gathering, we've been told by Wizards.
Yeah, it's huge. And Walt and I have now got nearly 50 episodes.
Yeah, I think right now it's 46, but probably by the time this comes out, maybe 47 or 48.
You're a lot more frequent. Is it once a week or once a fortnight?
Week? Yeah,
once a week. Yeah, so
every Friday.
Just me and Walt writing episodes and recording in Walt's bedroom, just trying to crank out content. But we've been doing it for a while now. But we're like trying to grow now. This is the next phase of the Get Commander podcast, is reaching more people.
Yep. And where can these people find you?
Everywhere, except YouTube at the moment. We're on all good podcasting platforms.
Audio
So Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, everywhere you can get podcasts. Currently working on getting YouTube audio up as well, but that's a video and it's annoying to do. But
it's another layer of editing is the main thing. We were releasing video and then we sort of we didn't have this amazing camera setup that you guys have here.
This is very pro. This is really cool.
This would look a lot nicer than what we were throwing together, which was just a static or slightly moving background and an image and then the name of the episode. And then otherwise it's just us talking the whole time.
Well, we had Jacob come on board and I'm like, if you got to do something, do it right. I'm like, how much do you need? He's like this. I'm like, oh God, all right. And you still want more. You both do. You and Nick both do.
Do you want a side hustle as well?
So it's it's expensive to start off, but it is worth it. And even then there's some improvements that I think we're looking to make.
Just for a tip in general for podcasts is that YouTube actually has a recommendation algorithm where Spotify and stuff kind of does, but it's just nowhere near to the same extent. And Spotify were more likely going to push their own exclusive ones.
This is the thing that we're interested in now with growing as content creators is how do we reach more people? And YouTube just seems to be the place where Magic content's consumed. You look at Command Zone and Tolarian Community College, they're the two big ones from the US, and they're primarily on YouTube. That's their home platform. So I think we've now got a pretty decent backlog of content that we can hopefully grow on that platform and bring more people in listening to the audio version and hopefully video one day. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you can just do silly vlogs like we do.
Yeah.
Something
We
we've talked
should.
about. Something we've talked about.
Yeah. So you guys have been playing Magic for how many years? Like, well, how many years have you been playing
Well,
Magic?
it's kind of a tricky question to answer, actually. I've technically been playing since I was like 6 years old.
Right,
I
okay.
used to play like in the playground of my primary school on the asphalt unsleeved cards,
Oh,
like
hurts me.
tapping them,
Yeah.
making up rules. Like we go like, oh, I don't think that works like that. I think it works like this. I don't have any idea what we're doing.
And there's like a $20,000 card that's gone through the wash now. and
There's
it's been
some
ruined.
really beat up old cards that I found in like shoe boxes and stuff from,
Yeah, right.
from when I was a kid. But got back into it properly. Me and James got sort of locked down in the same house. And actually,
Okay.
we didn't know each other before this, but we were locked down with a couple of other people who also had cards. And we were kind of like, oh, let's just like play. And then, yeah, James had just started playing Commander. And so he was like, well, actually, there's a way we can play all four of us in the same game because most Magic is 1v1.
Yep.
So yeah, we just started building decks, and it was all downhill from there. No.
Yeah, right.
Well, I mean, it was a pretty big spiral. We were in
Yeah.
like Victoria's lockdowns. So I started playing like 2018 and started playing Standard. And then 2019 was introduced to Commander. And then as lockdown hit, it was, you couldn't, everyone knew what lockdown was. You couldn't leave your house for
Yep.
more than 5 kilometers. So the share house we were in was like, 6 of us. 4 of us played Commander. That was perfect. That's all you need for a game of Commander. And we played a lot. So in that like single year, we probably played more Commander than I've played in my entire life.
Yeah, probably. And the other thing is like the thing we discovered is that because we were getting like the Victorian government subsidies, like I lost my job when lockdown started. So I was getting like the, job seeker, but it was like so much money. And you don't have anything to spend it on when you're in lockdown, right? It's like, okay, I can get food. Or I'm going to get some Magic cards, I think.
This story is very like, I've heard this from quite a vast array of people that this is the same, pretty much the same concept. It's just like, I had nothing to do, so I collected cards or just learnt to play and
Yeah,
So-
we had a lot of online orders of like, thousands of dollars worth of Magic cards within that year.
Yeah,
multiple.
Yeah.
Lots.
That's
Properly
nuts.
hooked. Yeah.
Right. I've never played Magic before. Like I remember getting the cards out of it would have been when they first came out. It was like in a K-Zone magazine or something like that. And I'm
Wow.
like, what is this? And I was just always Pokemon. So break it down for a lot of our listeners are Pokemon related.
Yeah.
So obviously, Commander's a format of Magic. In the most basic, concise way, how would you describe it?
Okay, so the 281-page rule document. Of Magic the
break
Gathering,
it
you
down.
wanted
I
me
want
to
like a paragraph.
concise, sure.
Just to like maybe hook some people or get, pique some interest. See if you can sell me on it. Sell me
All right.
Commander.
Okay, I'll sell
He's
you
got the
Commander.
marketing. He's the marketing guy. So
Okay.
I can
sell it to
I
you.
can do this. So, all right. So you've played a bunch of trading card games. Pokemon's like the foray, right?
Yeah.
This is the original. This is the granddaddy of all trading card games. Anyone that understands how a trading card game works will have some form of understanding of Magic at a base level. Magic introduced the systems of how these games work. Like the mana system in Magic is like the resource that you use to cast spells.
Your energy and all that sort of
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly right. Or like, I've never played Yu-Gi-Oh, but like whatever those orange balls are on the top of the Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Right.
But
Yep.
mana is the
Something,
resource
yeah.
that you use in Magic. And then the main thing that you need to do is bring your opponent's life total down to 0. Usually in one-on-one formats, it starts at 20. You do that by summoning creatures, and then you can swing with the creatures at your opponent, and they can choose to block with theirs. You can cast spells that like have an effect and then go to the graveyard. But the coolest thing about Magic is you can play it in heaps of different ways, and the best way to play it is Commander. 4 players, and you can choose who you attack. So that's like the big thing of Commander is like,
So it's basically like the Spider-Man meme.
yes,
Yes.
100%.
Exactly
pointing
like
at
the
each other.
Spider-Man
Yeah.
meme.
Yeah. But it gets one of my favorite parts in Commander is the politics side of things because it's not 2v2 or 1v1. It's
So you
one-
can gang up on someone and get him.
and it
If
happens
they've
a
got
lot.
like a notoriously strong deck. It's like, all right, we're all weak to this, so let's all gang up on this person and make it a bit more fair across the 3 of us. Yeah.
100%.
Okay.
And then it becomes like, so we actually, probably at the time this comes out, the episode will have just released, but we have this whole thing about like not looking too threatening too early because it's a real thing, because everyone can see what you're doing. If you're too threatening early on, the other 3 players will just go like, James has got to go down. Let's actually like kill James right now.
Yeah.
So like we've talked a lot in our podcast about ways you can sort of like sneak under the radar a little bit so people don't like try to kill you. But it makes it such an interesting way to play because you're sort of balancing like the mechanics of the game and the things you can do.
There's an extra layer of social psychology to it.
Absolutely, there is.
Huge. It's like an extra layer that's about as thick as the rule document as well. Like
Yeah.
it's a really big part of the game. I love it. I love that part of the game. Some people get nervous when they try and interact with the politics side because they're like, all right, I'll give you this if you don't attack me for 2 turns, or I'll remove this problematic thing on Walt's board. I'll like get rid of that, Draneth Magistrate that means you can't cast your commander, but as long as that thing never touches me.
Do you see elements of betrayal?
Oh yes.
Absolutely.
Your face just
Absolutely. No, like and like
it's like, boy, have I.
yeah.
Specifically from me, yes.
Well, me and James have been playing together for like the whole time we've been playing Commander, basically. Like since 2020, we've played probably like in the hundreds of Commander games against each other. It's like playing with other people versus playing in a game with James is like a completely different thing because it's like James knows all my tricks. I know all of James's tricks. And that's in terms of like how I'm playing the cards, but also that social aspect of like, I know, and I've said this on the podcast before, when James starts really being like, hey guys, let's have a chat about this. Let's like consider what we're going to do next. It's because he's about to lose. Yeah, he's trying to manipulate you. So yeah, there's like all these layers of it. And yeah, like probably the downside to Commander is if you're playing with people who you don't trust and don't know very well, you can end up in situations of being like, oh man, I feel kind of weird about that game where I kind of got ganged up on, and there's kind of aspects of that, which is why, me and James are always like really adamant about like communicating really openly with the people that you play with before the game, after the game, during the game, to make sure everyone's kind of on the same page. Because the format that we play, basically almost every card that's ever been printed in Magic the Gathering across its like 30 years at this point, is legal in Commander. Right.
Yeah, so there is a ban list, but it is very small.
Yeah.
Like in
contrast to the ratio.
In contrast to like other formats, like you go on the standard ban list, and there's just as many cards on that, but that's only using cards within the last 3 years of Magic, not the last 30 years.
Yeah,
and it's the same length of a ban list.
So consequently, like the variance in how strong a deck can be is really, really wide. So like we're big champions for like before a game, making sure you're sitting down with people who are like down for the same sort of experience that you are, because some people can be like, okay, I want a deck that like rockets me ahead straight away and I win on turn 4 or whatever, and then someone else is like, oh, I found these cards in a shoebox that I used to play with in primary school.
Yeah, right.
Can I play with these ones? It's like these two people are not going to have the best time if they play together.
Yeah, this is like known as Rule 0 is what Commander has, because like every format of Magic other than Commander is considered like a constructed or competitive format. So you're versing someone and the whole point is to win, right? That's the point of every game, is to win. Commander is a little bit different in that you want to have a good game. It's a social format. There's no competitive structure. At the moment, Wizards of the Coast do not like have any competitive format of Commander that's been endorsed and has a prize pool. And
I feel it could get like it's a from what little information I have surrounding it, what little we've discussed about it, it's a black hole, like of a web of issues that can arise of like, just
balancing power.
Like that social layer can really bring out some nastiness, I reckon.
Yeah. It's probably a big downside to the fact that Commander is such a popular format of Magic right now, is that there's a lot of people who traditionally would play formats that are one-on-one, just competitive, I'm just trying to win, who are now sort of being felt like there's no one to play with them if they're playing those formats, so they have to play Commander. And consequently, they're ending up in games with people who don't have that same mindset of like, I'm just trying to win right now.
Yeah.
Like it's a real iffy one about like whether they should play like Commander tournaments. I think probably not. I think James has a slightly different perspective, but look, the most important thing is like, it's such a great way to learn how to play Magic because you can just play with a bunch of mates. There's 4 of you at a table, like you play around a kitchen table at home. It's got a really different feel to just like going to a tournament and losing, like, because that's what's going to happen if you're new to a game. But in a Commander game, because people can sort of see you're behind, you might win a game that you aren't necessarily the best player at the table for, because you kind of sneak under the radar because you're new. And there's like a lot of really interesting dynamics there.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think I do have a little bit of a different opinion on like how Commander can be better utilized by Wizards of the Coast in terms of like a format to promote. Because right now I think Pioneer and Modern and Standard are probably like the main 3 formats that are being promoted as competitive. Like Australia and New Zealand have the ANZ Super Series, which is like an organized tournament event on Pioneer. Arena has like an open invitation to Standard, which is like the most recent sets of Magic. But Commander is, like Walt said, the most popular format of Magic, and Wizards are doing essentially more business approach than community approach to the game. They're just pumping out a ton of product for Commander, but not supporting it with any, they are now, thankfully, with Magic Con and Command Fest and stuff like that. But I think structured play would be really cool. But I think the only way to do it is by doing what's known as CEDH. So EDH stands for Elder Dragon Highlander, which is shorthand for Commander. CEDH is basically a way of playing Commander that's just saying, I want to win in this pot of 4. I will be victorious. I'm not here for a good game. I'm here to win. So it's a very different mindset than a casual Commander game where you're meeting up with friends at at your local game store or even at the kitchen table and just playing for fun. It's a very different thing. It's
very
like, I want to win.
poker-esque, sort of everybody don't bluff. You've got a lot of elements there that would be really, really interesting. They sell pre-built decks and stuff, don't they? Or,
there's some pre-cons, and I think the pre-cons are the thing that's making the format itself grow, because these pre-cons are really entry level. They've got very simple mechanics that are kind of designed to be easy to understand and easy to play out. There's no really complicated mechanics where you have to read a 3-page thesis by a PhD mathematician on how it works. But these pre-cons are also released with every standard set. So every set that's big and promoted, like Lord of the Rings, for example, is not in standard, but it's a huge set that got a lot of promotion. It's got the Lord of the Rings IP as well. So
it's massive.
They
got how many pre-con decks do they have for this?
I think they had 4 or 5.
It was 4.
Perhaps we do a vlog between me, you, Nick, Jack, and I with just pre-constructed Lord of the Rings decks.
I would watch that.
There you go.
I would.
From 4 dudes that have never played Magic before, we'll get a crash course from these guys.
If you want.
I played it once and I didn't understand.
Can we get a crash course? Jack's actually, no, that was Fab, wasn't it? Yeah, maybe we can get a crash course from you guys, and then we can just do a vlog of us just playing the prefab decks for Lord of the Rings.
2 weeks to not be shit.
Yeah, you've got 2 weeks starting now, and if you forget, I forget everything, then I'll just sit there and look like a silly little Billy.
Well,
fine.
You're playing with Lord of the Rings cards, so as long as you just go hobbits as you cast things, you're doing it.
I'm having a good time.
Right.
I'm just gonna pretend I'm Gollum the entire time.
Exactly, that's fine.
That's sick. That's a cool idea. So you guys are mainly doing your Commander community within Good Games Greensboro, right? Michael's store, yeah?
Yeah.
But you're also with our good friend Joel doing some work over at Plenty of Games, is that correct? Or what's the do?
Well, the podcast kind of grew out of a community group that we started out at Good Games in Greensboro. So that's kind of the origin of the podcast. To be honest, it's where we play most of our games still, is the Tuesday nights is their Commander night. It's a huge, big thing. There's a raffle. There's
60, 70 people there every week.
Yeah, it's a big community event. But yeah, we've definitely also gone down to oh my God, it's so hard. We know you guys as POG, but we also know Plenty of Games.
We were
as
the
POG.
first.
I believe you. I believe you.
I gave Joel a hard time about that when he came in as well.
Yeah.
Every single time, though, I'm trying to say one of them, I end up saying the other one, and James is like, do you mean Plenty of Games? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I do. Holy shit. Yep. Anyway, sorry, Plenty of Games in the city, not you guys. We go there on a Monday night sometimes to play with them. They have a similar number of people, but a bit less of a structured sort of night, because they don't really have the raffle and the community group that's based there at Plenty of Games. But yeah, that super, super cool communities at both places, and both stores have been super lovely to us as people coming in from the content sphere of going, we want to support this format of Magic. We want to support the stuff that you guys do. Both have been really, really cool to us in different ways. Plenty of Games give us a discount code as part of the community group that we started.
CMDR community.
Yep.
If you want
to go buy some singles from them. So that was really cool. And then, Good Games have done some other stuff for us. So it's the main thing we want to do is to just chat and meet a lot of people playing Commander in Melbourne. And you get really different groups of people in both places. Greensboro is obviously a bit of a hike if you're based in the city. But you'd completely different group of people out there. So
I mean, the Good Games Greensboro store was where we got our feet and started to learn how the community worked. And the community group itself was something that I kind of talked to a couple of the people within the community and wanted to make something a little bit more structured, because it was the Wild West after COVID, really. It was 50, 70 people in a group chat, all no structure, just trying to organize games. And, it was, no moderators. So it was not very
Chaos.
friendly for anyone new. It was like all these inside jokes and, sometimes walking the line of, is that okay to say in a group chat kind of thing?
Well, we also, Magic has an official rating of 12 plus.
Yes.
And it's something we had to be super aware of, like as content creators and also as a community group. It's like actually the game is marketed to children, like actual children, people under the age of 18 are welcome to play the game. They're encouraged to play the game. And yeah, this original group chat that we were in was not 12 plus.
It was,
and it was an issue.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this was what sparked it, but we basically created a non-for-profit group that's like a real, a fully official non-for-profit that's dedicated. It's got a constitution that I wrote at length. It's like a 6,000 word document just to make sure that there's a structure of what the community group is for. And the main thing is to bring people together to play Commander and promote the format. And that's all it was. And now there's been, there's now monthly events. The first Tuesday of every single month is a day we call Commander the Gathering, which is where we host a different variant of Commander. So even though Commander is like a format of Magic and there's many formats, there are different ways you can play Commander. And we do that on the first month of every Tuesday. The podcast was really born out of that because we thought, let's give the community some content. And we tried you had a solo podcast for a short 3 or 5 episodes, something like that.
Well, kind of a solo podcast. Yeah, it's sort of interesting. Based on this community group, I was kind of like coming in fairly new to this community that already existed that were playing Commander out there. I was like, I feel like there's a lot of things I can learn from these players. And so I had this podcast called Know Thine Enemy, where I would like interview each of the different people in the store and like ask them about their, like how they play Magic and how they do different things. And I quickly realized I'm too opinionated to interview people because I was like hearing them say stuff and being like, man,
you're just wrong.
I think that's wrong, actually.
That sucks.
That sucks, yeah.
Why would you play that card?
Yeah. Like instead approached James and was like, I feel like we're both pretty opinionated. We can talk for an hour in general without, needing a pause. So we might as well get the mic involved. Actually kind of guide the community group. So our podcast is called Get Commanded because we get a transmission from the Space Commanders at the start of every single episode.
No one has ever seen them or know whose they are.
No, they're based somewhere out in space, and that's like they have sort of like a message for us that's like a important thing to keep in mind when you're playing Commander. Like, when you're playing Commander, you should always have a plan for bringing the game to an end so the game doesn't go too long. That would be like the kind of command that we get from the Space Commanders, and then it was up to me and James to interpret that and be like, okay, so this is what they want us to do. And it was kind of a way of guiding the community group of being like, hey guys, like let's play more like this kind of a game rather than these games where people might end up feeling upset by the end of it.
I mean, this is the great thing as content creators. We're like so embedded within the community, specifically in like Greensboro area. But even now that we've gone to a Command Fest and we're at, the Plenty of Games store in the city, we're so embedded. We can really feel what the community is doing. We're not just playing with, our own friends excluded from the wider community of Commander. We're actually really aware of the problems within the format or the issues that we can talk about and hopefully help fix. And there's been some things that like I think we've done with the podcast. Like I think we had an episode ages ago called The Etiquette of Commander.
Okay.
And it was much more like when you're playing a Commander, there's certain like social contract that you sign up for. And that was like a really big problem within the store was people were getting upset because rules weren't being played correctly or the power level of the pods weren't balanced. So we really did an episode that was like, here's our advice on to make sure that you're conducting yourself in the right way to make you have better games of Commander.
Yeah,
that's
cool.
like the whole point.
It's a really wholesome environment, I guess. But would you ever have like, I'm pretty certain you would have had, but has there been any sort of upset people within the stores that you've been, and how did you resolve that, I guess?
I mean, for sure. It's like, this is the thing about it being a social game is everyone's trying to do their own thing and build their deck in a really interesting way and see their deck pop off in a way that is like uniquely theirs. And if it doesn't happen, it kind of creates the feels bad, right? It makes you go, oh, I don't want to play this game anymore. Or these people didn't let me do what I wanted to do, et cetera, et cetera. And people can get pretty salty. But I think the main thing that we've managed to do, especially with the community group and the podcast, is just create a culture of like being open communicators. I know it sounds like really basic and it's like kind of stupid that you have to bring this into a card game, but like if you talk about what's wrong.
Common sense isn't too common.
No.
Yeah, it's surprising, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was the thing we found, like, super early on, we ended up writing, like, a code of conduct that we put up in the store that was just, like, for the Commander night specifically on a Tuesday night. And, like, yeah, when you read them, it's like, yeah, of course. Like, they're kind of just, like, obvious things. But once you see it on the wall and, yeah, you have people kind of remind you of it every now and then. And, yeah, you sort of see that when someone does act a particular way, someone might go up and be like, hey, maybe don't do it that way. Yeah, we noticed, like, a real shift where there probably have only been, I think there were only about 2 or 3 people that we ever had to say, like, you guys aren't welcome here anymore.
Yeah, right.
For just like very obvious like racism based things.
Yeah, that's
just like
stuff that's just blatantly
completely
just not
inexcusable.
okay.
Yeah.
But so much more of the time we've had experiences with people where they've just like been a bit the wrong way in a particular game, and we've come at them afterwards and been like, hey, like, just so you know, we kind of want to have games that are more like this. And most of them have been like super receptive to feedback and are still like active members of the community that we're in. Good. So yeah, I think the structure really helped. And I think also just like reminding people to have a focus on like, you're all sitting down to play together. Like, we know you guys have your own ideas about like, I want to build a deck that does this and that's my whole goal. I just want to make sure it works in this particular way. And it's like, that's great. But there are 3 other players in that game and like all of you have to sit down with the same expectations, and just having a focus on that, I think, has really shifted. Like, there's been people who early days had pretty poor conversations with people in the games that they were in, like were sort of like quitting, like conceding halfway through a game and being like, I'm out of here. And like,
Oh, that's no fun.
No.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's
And
a bit boring.
yeah, we found that just having a focus for those people on, just communicating openly before the game, communicating during the game, like reminding people like, oh, just so you know, like cards like that are generally not a fun experience for people that you play with. Just having like those focuses has meant that some of those people who used to be that way are like now like some of our best members of the community who are like the first people to be like, hey, let's have a conversation about this, and like, you know, really actively wanting to be that good player in a pod, which is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, look, for the Commander players that are listening in for this, we have like a get commanded structure for a Rule 0 conversation. So if Rule 0 conversation is how to balance the power level at the table, because someone could be using a pre-constructed deck by Wizards, which is like mid power, or someone could have got that deck and upgraded it a bunch with like some really expensive cards, and it's way better than every other deck at the table. So this is the reason why Rule 0 conversations are important. And we have found that there's like 3 key questions that if you ask your pod, the 4 players, and everyone answers, you can get a really good idea of how your deck fits in that pod. So the first question is, how does your deck win? Which is really simple to answer. You just outline what the deck is trying to do and how it's trying to kill its opponents. So let's say it's trying to create a bunch of creatures and go really, really wide so you don't have enough blocks and I can just run over you with a horde of beasts, that kind of thing. Or I'm trying to cast a million burn spells and just throw fireballs at your face, that kind of thing. So that's like the first question. The second question is, how consistently does it do it and why? So that's like okay, well, I'm running tutors, which in Commander is a way to search your library for a certain card, get that card to your hand and then use it, which is a pretty powerful effect. You can get any card that you want. That's a reason that your deck would be more synergistic and do it more often. There's another reason, like, you know, how much ramp does it have? So mana acceleration, are you getting 3 times as much mana to use as your resource than everyone else at the table? That's also going to make your deck more consistent. But then there's, you know, reasons why it might not be consistent. It's like, oh, I literally just found these cards in my collection and threw it together in 20 minutes. I'm not even sure if there's any card draw in this deck.
I don't know if there's any synergy at all.
I saw some artwork that I really liked and put that in a deck.
The theme for this deck is chairs. Every card has a chair in it.
That's my next question. I'm like, have you seen any just funny decks?
Oh, yeah.
You've got a few.
I've got a few.
Jacob, I feel like you just build something that's just silly.
There's a really cool, like, you know, on EDH Rec, which is the website that we use to like break down cards and like find synergies for your commanders and stuff. Some people have like gone so off script and they've built like mustache tribal. So every single character in the artwork has to have a mustache. Yeah.
Yeah. The really cool thing about Commander is like most formats of Magic, you can play up to 4 copies of a card, which I think has become the norm for like most other ways of playing card games, right? Like you can play
a
4
consistency
copies.
thing as well.
Yeah, exactly. Command is actually a singleton format, so you can only play 1 of every card. So there's 100 cards in the deck, and all of them have to be different, except for lands, which is just like your mana.
Just builds out a massive web.
Yeah, well,
and you have to like really think how like
many
the cards
possibilities.
interact with each other. So like if you're putting in a card that says every time you gain life, you put a +1 counter on this card. And if you have no other cards that gain you life, that's a terrible card in your deck.
Yeah,
So you have to think every single card that you put in has to work with the rest of the cards.
Well, and it means that when you're putting together a deck, like let's say that guy who wants to build a chair tribal or a mustache tribal deck, like he has to put together so many of those cards because he has to find a single one of each of those things. So it means that there's a real achievement of like putting together a deck with a really cohesive theme that actually all fit, because you have to find 99 of them that all sort of fit this idea. So yeah, like I've got a deck that is themed around knights. So like knights are a particular type of creature in Magic, but then there's a bunch of other spells that are not knights. And so I had to like think about, okay, what would a knight use or where would a knight go? And so like I have like swords in the deck, and I have like
a castle,
there's like castles in the deck, and there's like a drawbridge, and there's
it's like a theme, an overarching theme.
Yeah, exactly. And it means that you can kind of like have it can feel sort of like a narrative that you're constructing as you're actually making the mechanics of the deck. You're also sort of constructing like a story almost that goes along with the game that you're playing. And
well, I want to shout out one deck that you've built, because I think this is like showing that Commander is not really a game for some people. It's more of like a form of self-expression. Walt built a deck recently that was themed on his partner Electra. Every single card in the deck had to get her tick of approval to go in the deck.
She doesn't play, for context. She doesn't play the game at all.
Actively
no
hates
in it
whatsoever.
Actually. Yeah. But yeah, I tried to like, so she's like a real goth. So there's a lot of like just like goth looking like vampires and stuff in the deck. But she's also Greek. So there's like some like Greek gods inspired cards that have come out in Magic before. I had to like kind of construct this whole thing that felt like an experience that she would like narratively resonate with. She's a fantasy writer. So I kind of wanted it to feel like a world that she maybe would write in a deck.
Yeah.
And yeah, like that was a huge deck building challenge. But yeah, consequently, I can pull out this deck that is like, yeah, it like works. It has a goal of like sacrificing the creatures to deal damage to the opponents. That's kind of how it wins. But also it has like like a narrative that sits under the actual mechanics of the game. And yeah, sort of tells its own story as you're playing.
Yeah, I've said it before on our podcast, but like that deck to me is more of like a piece of artwork than like a deck. It's showing that Walt had like a thought process and a care to it, and wasn't just using EDH Rec, that website that I was talking about earlier that just tells you how to build your deck, finds the best cards and the best synergies mathematically. This has a theme and like a story. And when Walt plays that deck and he's telling people in his pod that, you know, this is about his partner, people are like, oh, why is there a Greek god in this deck? And you know, oh, my partner's Greek. And it really does. It's a completely different way of playing a card game, because everyone's just after chase rares, mythic cards that, you know, are hundreds of dollars, and they're just trying to get those in their deck. This deck costs you like what? $100? Not
150
even?
maybe. Yeah.
Cheap as.
Yeah.
And like it's got that much emotion and that much connection to part of his life. It's a completely different card game.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Have I sold you on Commander yet? That was the first question.
I mean, we're buying pre-built decks, aren't we?
Oh, that's happening? I'm so
I
down
reckon
for this.
we'll, for sure.
We got to do like a Rocky like training montage.
Yeah.
Where like we're telling you how to like
I think
tap
that
in,
guy over
tap
there,
in.
I reckon you can throw it together.
I love that.
That's something that he would enjoy doing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I wanted to try and do that with the Digimon.
True. But I was a big silly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No,
Well, I'll bring the rainbow headbands that we can like do jogging up the stairs and get ready for it.
reps.
Yeah. Dun, 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 dun.
With new variants of Magic, is it a ground up sort of way of building? Like, does a community come up with it, or is it sort of top down from Wizards, or is it a mixture of both?
Oh, it's totally a mixture of both. I mean, Commander is an example of a format that came out of the judges for Magic formats at the time being bored. This is like the story of Commander. No one really knows if it's 100% real, but basically the judges that were judging at these Magic competitions between rounds, when they were meant to be out on the floor and like looking over and answering questions about game rules and stuff like that, they were getting bored because it's something that they do all the time and they know it. So they decided, all right, let's make a format that's incredibly complicated. Let's use every single card that's ever been printed in Magic and we'll call that a format. Well, and let's play it with 4 of us at the table. That sounds like a great idea. So they started playing Commander as like a way to fill in time, and now it's the most popular format.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's really sick.
Yeah. I think there was also a focus for them on, at the time, there was sort of only a couple of different formats of Magic that existed. And there were cards that were sort of kind of old that were kind of going out and weren't really playable in these formats anymore as they were getting faster and faster. And one of those groups of cards were these old cards called Elder Dragons that were all 7/7 creatures. So they got 7 power and 7 toughness. And they were not playable in any sense because they cost way too much mana. They didn't do nearly enough to be worth it. But they were like, let's just build a format where the only things we can play, we have to build the whole deck around these Elder Dragons. And that's where we get
we can only use their colors. Like the colors, like there's 5 colors of Magic, and each of these dragons were like 3 colors. So they were like, right, if you choose Nicobolus, for example, you can only play blue, black, and red. No other colors are allowed.
But pretty much all the rules of Commander that we have can be traced back to there. So one of the aspects of Commander that you have is you always have access to your Commander, which is this extra card that's sort of outside the rest of your deck. You can always cast it from there. If someone's Commander deals 21 damage to an opponent, they lose. Even though you have 40 life, if you deal 21 with specifically your Commander, they lose the game. And it's because all of these original cards were 7 power and 7 toughness. So the idea was, if I can get through to your face 3 times with my 7 power creature, you'll take 21 and then you should lose. And it was kind of a way to incentivize actually using that card that they were trying to like build the whole format around. So
it's kind of wild because like those, like back then it was, the Elder Dragons, and that's where you get the Elder Dragon Highlander thing from. But in terms of like Wizards noticing that this was a format, you can see the progression of how much Wizards were like, oh my God, people want to play this.
Yeah.
Because there used to be a couple of cards that legally in the rules of Commander could be your Commander, and they were legendary creatures. These are creatures that have the card type legendary. That means that they've got like a really big story point around the Magic story, and they're important to the world of Magic. So they kind of get their own place in Commander. And recently, especially over the last couple of years, there has been more legendary creatures printed in the past like year and a half than ever before. Like 2 years worth of legendary creatures is worth half of the amount of cards that can be your Commander.
Yeah, they definitely like saw how popular it was getting, and then were like, wow, if we just like print cards for it, they'll just like sell like hotcakes basically. And then they started making pre-constructed decks and stuff. So I think Elder Dragon Highlander, which is the original name for Commander as a format, is traced back to like literally like some of the origins of Magic, like 2000 kind of thing. But Commander as a sanctioned Wizards format, I think is only like 10 years old. I think it's like 2013, 2012 or something like that. So that was definitely a case of one that was built, primarily by the players, or in this case, the judges, like playing with each other, and then became like an official thing. But then, you have other formats like Pioneer. It's probably one of the more recent ones.
That's the one that Wizards is pushing a lot.
Pushing it really, really hard. And that was like specifically like they were like, okay, the Pioneer will be a format where these cards are legal and these are the restrictions, and then go nuts. And that was like their way of sort of showing the format to everybody. But you get lots of formats that go the other way, like Commander. Like recently, Oathbreaker became a official format of Magic. And this is like similar to Commander, but you have to play with a particular kind of card called a Planeswalker instead of your Commander, and it's 60 cards, so it's you reduce that variance a little bit more, and that just became an official format for Magic. But that was
Commander players lapped that shit up.
Oh,
they saw like a new format that was like kind of like Commander, and they were like, "Gimme."
Straight up. But so it definitely goes both ways, I think.
Okay,
for Magic,
cool. And obviously, like if it's being built from the ground up, I guess organizations and people such as yourself actually talking about it and bringing awareness to it is probably a key aspect of it. So it's good to see that you guys are passionate enough to actually do something like what you're doing. So it's fantastic.
Thanks. I mean, we're huge Commander players, but like we also do dabble in other formats. Like Pauper is probably like our second favorite format. This is a format where you can only play common cards. So it's like the Pauper name being like it's cheap. It's really affordable to get into. But it's very similar to Commander for us because you can use a huge card pool. Like so many cards are legal. We draft a little bit on Twitch. We've done that once now, which is kind of exciting, but we're terrible at draft.
There's so many ways to play Magic. That's probably if we're still selling you on Magic, I would say
don't get overwhelmed.
Well, but also like if Commander doesn't take your fancy, there's literally a format for like basically everyone out there. Like there'll be a format, like there's this weird format called what's the one?
Are you thinking Dan?
Dan.
It's so weird. I found this out
formats.
I actually was at plenty of games just playing Commander, and there was a couple of people that I knew from like on Discords and stuff like that, and they were like, "Oh, hey James, come over and play this format. It's called Dan." I was like, "How does this work?" And they're like, "Oh, we share a library." like that's not a thing.
Right.
So instead of playing against my deck versus your deck, there is a Dan deck that
Only
sits in
play
the
with
middle.
Dans.
There's a card called Dan. It's like the sea monster, and that's like
Yeah.
the whole point of the deck is to find the sea monster.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the sea monsters they have like 4 power and 1 toughness, but they can only attack if the other player has an island. So like basically the whole format is built around this one creature. And so yeah, you have 20 life, but really you just think of it as like, cool, I can only get attacked by the fish 5 times. That's how it's built. So there's all these weird tricks of like manipulating the top of the library
It's
because
so
you kind
weird.
of there's lots of ways to look at what's on top, and so you're kind of like, very much that poker thing of going like, I want to stack it so that I get this one and they get that one, and
But like, can you think of another card game that shares a library?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, it's really odd.
It's so
strange,
weird. And
yeah.
like some like Magic formats have you in the middle of the game open a booster pack in the middle of a game and get a card from a booster
Does it ever
pack.
get really like convoluted and like really confusing? Like
Oh, hell
it's
yeah.
mixing, like the whole Magic is just, the focus is just lost.
This is something that a lot of people are concerned about at the moment. It's like called product overload is what it's been colloquially known as.
There's a lot going on.
so much.
It's ridiculous. And we have spoken about it on our podcast before that we think Wizards need to slow down because
Yeah.
they're overwhelming people coming into the format because there's new cards coming out all the time. And you need to find out, okay, does this go in my deck? And then if you've just built a deck and you're like, right, I'm really happy, I'm going to go to the game store and play with this deck. When you get to the game store, one of the people will be putting up a new poster for a new set. And you can see on the previews that there's a card that needs to go in your deck now and it's not even out yet. And you're like, how am I meant to keep up with all of these products?
Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot. I think for us, well, at least for me, like I had a time about 6 to 8 months ago where I was feeling really burnt out with just Magic, full stop. We were making the podcast, probably, added to it. Like it's a lot of work to put a podcast together, as you guys would know. But also we were playing a lot of Pauper, we were playing a lot of Commander, and it just got to a point where I was like, there's just too much going on. And yeah, I just had to like strip it down. And that was kind of the way that I fixed it. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to play these 2 formats. I'm not going to think about anything else. I don't have to know every single card, what it's going to be when it's released, because it's happening like literally every month. There's new cards coming out. I don't have to keep up with all of that stuff. And yeah, the podcast can just be weekly and we can just like chill out about it. And like, that's more than enough stuff.
I mean, even as content creators, like I think there's like this expectation that if you've got a podcast, you need to know every single card that is going to be printed.
And it's just not true. Like people listen to you because you're you and not necessarily because of like specifically,
And that's helped
the
us
information.
actually enjoy the game because it's a lot. And I think when you're playing it a lot, making content on it a lot, it can burn you out. And when you take a step back and go, okay, what do I actually enjoy about this? And for me, it was like similar to Walt, is I enjoy playing the game with my friends. So I want to go and play the game with my friends. That's what I'm going to do. And what's the game that I like to play? It's Commander. Okay, I'll play Commander. I don't have to play Standard. Don't have to play Modern, Pioneer. Don't have to draft. So yeah, before we sell you on Commander, don't get overwhelmed with all of Magic because it's a ridiculous black hole.
It's impossible to keep up with. So yeah, you just got to pick your
I was
focus,
thinking, I'm
yeah.
like, you're going to have to dedicate essentially half, if not all of your life to keep up with all aspects of it. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm a busy man.
Yeah.
I don't even know about that.
it's a tough sell,
I
right?
can't afford to be busier,
Yeah.
but I'll find a way to make it work.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
once
like,
we train you up
pre-constructed
in
deck.
Commander, you'll be
Once the
fine.
montage is done, I'll be a pro.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how does your production process work? Obviously, before we were discussing, it's a little bit different to how we do things. Is it just, rock up, speak into a mic, or like do you have certain processes you go through before you do your own podcasts? How do you go about it?
It's a lot less intense than this. I can tell you that.
Well, yeah, like in terms of the production, I guess we can give the timeline from start to finish. One of us will have like an idea for an episode. We've got like a Google Doc now that we share. We've got like, as of right now, yes, they're all the episodes we've made. There are probably like 20 more that we have the idea for.
More. I
Yeah,
reckon
maybe
there's
like 30 at
40.
this point. So one of us will be like, okay, I'm going to write that one of the ideas. Put together a script. Actually, I noticed like we were looking at your like sort of dot points that you have there. Ours is also definitely like a dot point-ish script. We very rarely read things like exactly as they appear.
Yeah, it's just impossible to do so.
No.
Otherwise, it just makes it like inorganic.
Especially with
Yeah.
guests, it's like like when there's multiple people talking, you go, okay, well, you can't script a conversation
No.
because your
Yeah.
brain thinks in a different way at the time.
Yeah.
That's
So-
why we have this often. It's such a guideline for me.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, you can have a look at it if you want, but you've got like 5 minutes to look at it.
And we're going to talk about whatever
and
the
we're
fuck
just
we
going
want.
to run with it.
So we'll dot point a script out. There's sort of thing. There's some things we always have in every episode. So the middle of every episode, I do a weird interlude, where I've been writing this blog post called Thrifty Thursdays for the last, at this point, 95 weeks, where I feature like a budget card, and either I'll do it like. There's a couple of different like ways I'll write it. Sometimes I pretend I'm like a character in the card and I'm like speaking from the magic world.
Walt has got an acting background, to be clear.
Yes.
He's not just weird. This is like, he's got a degree in this.
Oh no, I am weird.
You are very weird.
I'm a professional weirdo is the difference.
With a degree.
With a degree, yeah. Degree in weirdness. So I'll do like a sort of a dramatic performance of one of those in the middle of the podcast, and then sort of it goes on. And then, in terms of the actual editing, I edit together the audio timeline, usually make a goofy thumbnail. That was originally for YouTube, but these days we just share it on our Discord servers and on Facebook and stuff just so people know like roughly what the episode's going to be about.
The photo shoots for those are hilarious. I'm assuming we'll send you a couple so you can like put them up here. The Luke's hilarious.
We put together some very silly things. We realized quickly that the more silly the thumbnail is, the more likely people are to want to listen to it. And it's like, no wonder all the YouTubers have all their thumbnails going like this. Right. Like, they know what they're doing. Like probably that's basically like schedule up some Facebook posts to go along with the thing and then, release it. Record again the next week.
But I mean, this is something that we found is like we're best mates, but we're two very different people. I come from a business marketing background. That's my degree. Walt comes from a theater creative background. So our strengths are completely different. And we've managed to run the podcast with these strengths in mind. So when it comes to the creative stuff or writing silly skits, you do a lot of the legwork on that. I've written a few funny skits in my time.
Have.
But I think a lot of the creative stuff Walt takes care of, and a lot of the business orientated stuff like connecting with Palms Off. I'm coming out here and chatting to you guys and making sure that the podcast is supported in that way, and connecting to Good Games Australia now, which is something really exciting that's just kind of cropped up, and talking to plenty of games about events, and even doing stuff like getting an artist on board. My partner was so conveniently at hand at the time, getting a brand sorted for our podcast. That was something that I'm really passionate about, is how does our podcast look in the sphere and what's the vibe of it and the brand. That's something that I'm good at. So when we combine these strengths, we're running as a team of two. That's basically it. And I think it will be like that for however long. Yeah,
there's like not much that we don't feel confident in at this point, I think.
Nothing that we feel like we couldn't learn together either.
No.
Once we move into a sphere of video, it's like, okay, well, now we take a short LinkedIn learning course about how to use Final Cut Pro or like something like that.
Basically. But it does mean like, because I'm sort of our only editor at this point, a lot of the ideas that are kind of on the back burner right now in terms of like new ways of making content are just limited by the fact that like we feel really strongly about being a weekly podcast. We feel really strongly about that podcast being like written really well. Like we really structure our episodes with a focus of like getting an argument across and making sure people understand what we're talking about.
I mean, in terms of time, we spend probably like a good 2 hours writing an episode. That's like, that's writing. There might be like an hour of research that we have to do beforehand. Like one of the episodes recently we did was about complicated rules in Magic the Gathering. And that took me about 4 to 5 hours to write in total. And then recording is about 2 more hours. Editing is about another hour. Promotion, I do a lot of the promotion on, different Discords that, Commander players gather on online, and try and send it out to some different people to promote as well. That takes another 30 minutes to an hour. And I work full time. Like that's something that's not understated. It's a lot of
wait till you introduce
effort.
Video as well. That's what the entire job he's here for is just video, and it's a lot of work. You do a lot of fun stuff though as well. You could bare bones a little bit more, but it just wouldn't be as fun. So
some of your montages are
you're doing really well. I don't come from an editing background, so like the limiting factor for a lot of our like next sort of phases of things we want to do is just like. We want those weekly episodes. We want them to be edited really well. And so, I don't feel that I could currently fit in like editing up full video to go up on YouTube. That would look really good. Even if we had a camera, which we don't, like we'd have to get a camera first. That extra amount of editing that would be required would probably burn me out at this point. So it's kind of like a balance of being like, we want to continue to deliver the content that we know people love, which at this point is, weekly episodes about the games that we play. And so yeah, that's kind of priority number one. And then like down the track, as more people subscribe to our Patreon, or like we have more relationships with guys like you, maybe we'll explore more ways of making stuff. But at this point, it's like, okay, we've got to keep the weekly episodes happening. That's the main focus.
Because there's something to say about like this podcast, the Get Commander podcast, coming from a place of like just two dudes with a microphone running. I mean, it's not a company that's pushing an agenda. It's like two independent content creators, and we have nothing else to support. I mean, we were out of pocket for a long time until we connected, and you were like, We'll pay for the distribution of it. What's that? Like $100? Yeah, we'll shout you that. That's easy. You guys have made it so that we don't feel like we're burning out and just spending a bunch of money. The Palms Off coming on board has helped us, be motivated to make weekly episodes because we've got that distribution sponsor from you guys, and now we're looking at more brands to come on board and help us out. It's really just us. That's the main thing. And if people want to support it happening, there is a Patreon. There's ways to support us. So yeah, just two content creators, and right now, probably the only ones in Australia doing it.
Yeah, that's kind of one thing we've discovered recently. I was saying to one of you before we started recording that we've done a lot of digging and like researching of trying to find like
competitor analysis.
Well, basically, like, is there anyone else in Australia making casual Commander content? Because we expected there to be loads of people, because Magic the Gathering is this huge game. Commander is the most popular way of playing. Most players are casual players. We were like, surely there will be like, a bunch of YouTubers, a couple of podcasts, that kind of thing. As far as we can tell, there is nobody making casual Commander content. So it's just us. Yeah. It's like a lot of pressure, but it also means like, there's a lot of people out there who want to hear from us.
Opportunity as well.
Yeah.
So you can get first in, first serve sort of on a lot of stuff. So
Absolutely.
That's really cool.
Well, I mean, I've said multiple times to different people that my goal with the podcast is I want to make enough noise in Australia that Wizards of the Coast can't ignore the Australian market as like a valid place to do large scale events or large, special product launches. Like we've had, specifically for Australia, we've had maybe 2 promos of cards that are Australia exclusive.
Yeah.
And then each state in America will get something different.
Yeah.
Even the UK is like a huge market. South America, like all of these places are getting much more attention. And Australia is huge. We just had Command Fest and it was, 2 days sold out immediately.
Yeah,
like
cool.
there is a market here.
Yeah, that's sick. That's really, really cool. When you're at events, even just for some information for us as well, like what do you see there are a lot of demand product-wise to where's the demand at? Like what do people want? What are people looking for? What gaps are there? Like what are people looking at? Like, I wish we had this particular thing that'd make my life a lot easier. For example, I saw a company in the EU that are doing like shields for commanders. It's basically like an aluminum top loader. Which was really cool. Yeah, I looked at it. I'm like, God, that's a really cool idea. A lot of people are using mini snaps for their commander. A lot of people, will just put them in a one touch or something like that. Like, what's the vibe here?
I think probably like the main thing about Commander players is that most of us, because each deck plays so differently and has such a particular strategy about it, most of us have so many decks. So like, I've got like 15 decks. James has got about 15 decks. Even like a typical player at our store who's only been playing for like a year or something probably has like a pre-constructed deck and 2 or 3 other decks.
My partner's been playing for like a year pretty much to the month and now has 5.
Yeah.
Like it happens quick.
It adds up really quick. I think like ways to show off the commander is a huge one, like you're talking about, like especially to kind of bling it out in that way. I guess like for me, honestly, the deck boxes I'm using at the moment are the Ultimate Guard boulders, I think.
Yep.
And it's a big part of the reason is because you can actually like see through the front of it and actually see which
you can
what the commander is.
identify it. Yeah.
Yeah, which is a big thing when you've got a lot of decks is you're like, okay, which one's which here? Because they've got like a million boxes, they all look the same.
This is a discussion that we had 3 weeks ago.
Oh, really?
On my board, yeah. So I've got some concepts that we're going to be sending off soon to tackle this very problem. So
we're happy to be guinea pigs here as well. We're very happy to help.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's a huge thing is that like the commander is such an integral part of how you build literally every other card in the deck is chosen based on what that commander is. And for some people, like they get them altered to look a particular way. James, his favorite commander, he has had an artist hand paint an extension
I've actually got
of the art.
more than that. I'm going to do something really gross and take off my shoe for a second.
Oh God,
no.
I've actually got
custom kicks.
This is what Bo was talking about on the podcast we had with him.
I've got a custom Air Force One sneaker with this side of it says Miz, but the other shoe says Niv because the commander is Niv Mizzet. So I got like custom shoes. This is how enfranchised commander players are with their
right.
commanders is they get everything customized, custom playmats, custom deck boxes.
So basically any way that you can find to show off the commander specifically, because it's the card that people will feel most drawn to in the whole deck, like that's always going to be a gold mine with commander players. So yeah, like ways to put the commander in a special sleeve. Like even we've got a couple of times we've ordered from Etsy, there's like people who make little commander trays. They're like these little sort of plastic holders where you put the commander literally while you're playing the game of Commander, because there's a few things you have to keep track of. Like you got to track your life total, but also, like I was saying earlier, when your commander deals damage to someone else, you have to track how much damage they've taken, because if they take 21, they lose. So the trays have like little dice slots, so you can put like your dice in and track how much damage each person has taken, because it gets complicated quickly. Like there's 4 commanders, 4 different players. You've got to track a lot of different things.
We actually bought some. We'll show you.
Yeah,
cool.
We can definitely show you. But yeah, like the more ways to show off the commander, the better.
Yeah, okay.
I've seen like some really interesting like custom deck boxes where people put like a top loader as the lid of their deck box.
Yeah.
So they put the commander in a top loader and that acts as like a lid to the rest of the deck. And then when they pull out the commander, it's in a big, Perspex case that's easily identifiable that that's their commander. And some people get like blinged out versions, like a secret lair, which is like $100, something like that. So they want to keep it protected as well.
Yeah.
I'll obviously they're not the things that we will discuss on the podcast, but there's a few concepts that I'll run past you and see if you like the sound of them, because we're just as simple as just cool, this is a sample, send it off and get it made sort of thing. So because we're focusing a lot more on playable stuff as well.
That's exciting.
Box time? Yeah.
Crack boxing?
Yeah.
Cool.
Sick.
Let's do it.
Jacob's cranky with amount of thinking and listening.
No,
It's a lot of time.
No, I'm watching the memory card.
Okay.
Running out of space.
Hope we don't like get halfway through like
Jacob's forced us to open cards. Oh no.
What a shame.
So
Oh, we got top loaders on hand as well.
25 minutes. All right. To enjoy the
fly
box.
through it. Top loaders.
This is easy enough.
Tag sleeves if you want to find anything that you want to get graded. There's that. And there's semi-rigids as well.
Now, I actually bought Walt this exact edition for his birthday. So we've already opened one of these boxes, but it could be way better than your birthday
It could
box.
be way better. And look, like if nothing else, we can show off. There's a really cool thing that comes in here, which is in the Lord of the Rings set, they've printed a bunch of extended art cards that actually, if you put them all together, they form a single image.
4 promos in here.
Yeah, the 4 promos.
We just pulled them out.
Yeah. So we'll definitely show that up on the camera. It looks.
Yeah. Me and Jack are just like, we want to open this. So what the concept is, I reckon we're gonna divvy up all the packs. We're just gonna open both boxes, divvy up all the packs.
Cool.
And then go from there.
Sounds good.
Oh, heck yeah, let's do it. Do we have to open in a specific, like,
yeah, pretty much just like this zone here.
Yeah, cool.
Let's have a look. So basically,
I've already
this
opened
box.
one, so you can open this one and I'll just watch from over here.
They got the
I don't think I'll
promos
be
in
able to
it.
reach over there.
Cool dice as well. We were trying to putt that on our little putting green up in the.
You got a putting green up there.
Yes, we do.
Guys have got everything.
Oh my god.
Man.
We have fun here.
They are very, very pretty dice though.
They are.
They're
Like,
super
and they're
sick.
the spin down ones as well for commander life totals.
Yeah.
And
The only issue I
love
found
that.
with them, because I was playing with one the other day, I was playing Pauper, which is like a 20 life format. So I was using it as my life counter. Is my opponent was like, what does that say? Because like, look at the numbers, like from a distance, like you can
can't
see
see
you can
much.
tell, but you have to like crane your
That's
head.
yeah.
To really look at it.
Yeah. Looks really cool though.
I was
Very
really
cool.
stoked with these promo cards because we pulled a foil Mount Doom as well.
Oh,
So
sick.
like, I want to get them graded and then put them in a frame and then put the Mount Doom on top
Yeah,
or on the
cool.
bottom.
Well,
there's
More of a decorative thing for us.
There is one of these scene cards, like these ones. These have the, Sam, Frodo, and then Gollum, and then
the
the
ring,
all-important one ring.
Yeah.
There's one version of these scene cards that has, is it 26 cards?
Something like that. It's the Battle of Pelennor Fields, which is the end of Return of the King. Also, really the middle. When you think about how long that film goes for.
A long
But
time, yeah.
The big battle outside Minas Tirith in Gondor, there's actually 26 cards that are like special extended treatments like this, and they form the whole scene.
That's cool.
Actually, I actually brought, because we were at Command Fest just the other
Oh,
day.
the playmat, that's
and
so
the
true.
playmat actually is the scene. Can I grab it and show
Yeah,
you?
go for it. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
so pretty. I reckon what would be a really cool piece of decoration if you want to jazz this place up and get some commander games in here is if you can get all of those cards and put them up on the wall next to each other and make the scene. That'd be
right.
sick.
And then maybe show it to that camera, but like that's the whole scene.
That's cool.
So there's
Yeah,
26
yeah.
cards or something like that.
So like you've got Aragon down on the front there. You got Legolas.
Yeah.
You got the Witch King of Anmar.
Bats, there's like
Yeah.
the Olifants and stuff.
Yeah,
Still
right.
only
Yeah,
counts
go
as
for it.
one
Yeah, yeah,
kill.
So it's pretty sweet. Is that I can't really see the that's cool. Yeah. No, it's really sweet. Very hyped to have gotten that at a Magic event.
Big
It's got
fan
good effects in it.
of Lord of the Rings in general. So
Are you like a huge just nerd?
used to be. Not so much anymore. Too busy. But yeah, I loved Lord of the Rings as a kid. My old man took me to see Return of the King whenever that came out. I can't remember how many years ago
How
that
cool's
was.
the flavor? Like second breakfast is such a good flavor.
Yeah, there's one food.
Yeah.
Just like, yeah.
Well, I mean, food is such a cool mechanic in the. Oh, sweet, we got a Grey Havens as well, which is in the art as well.
Very
It's really
good.
cool. Rangersville.
Maybe if we pull one of those
Brandy
cards from Pelennor Fields, maybe we can show just like what that looks like.
Yeah,
as
on the playmat as well.
Oh, I put that away, but just to give people the idea of the scene and how it all goes together.
It's just like this set is such a cool IP for Magic to have.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
massive.
Because I mean, it's also very flavorful for Magic the Gathering anyway. A lot of Magic sets are very,
Very
know,
inspired by Lord of the Rings. If you
Yeah.
look at some of the earlier stuff that comes out, like you can tell what they had in mind when they were
Oh, nice.
putting it together.
That's cool.
I love the full art lands, but I'm really disappointed with how they did the map full art lands here. Because if from a distance, what color do you think this is? It's like green, right? But
Soft green.
but
Yeah.
it's white. It's plains. It taps for a white mana. How confusing is that?
Yeah, right.
So all the lands look almost exactly like that, and it's quite an important thing in Magic is knowing what colors of mana people have access
Yeah.
to, and yeah, it can get
Fire
confusing.
Inscription's a sick card.
Yeah, cool.
The thing we've heard, so like, hey, the Mirkwood
Mirkwood
Bats, that card's really
Bats.
good, and
That's
that's
a
part of the
strong
scene
card.
actually. So that's an example of one of the
Yeah,
ones
that's
that goes in
cool.
that battle.
Love all those
Field.
extended
Solid.
arts, like the ones that, like, Dragon Ball do as well, like the paired cards. Like we've got a set of framed cards up there that I put in a picture frame
Yeah,
that just have like the extended art across multiple cards. I think it's just such a cool.
It always looks so cool.
Yeah,
it's such
so
a
when you
great
put the
collector's
picture
item.
together,
And yeah, definitely.
Would you say you're a big collector as
Yes.
opposed to like? Do you reckon you collect more or do you play more?
I will collect way more. Like I barely play. So
Hey, Mithril Coat.
Hey, that's a good one.
It's incredible in Commander, actually. This is a really, really strong card in Commander because when it enters the battlefield, you attach it to target legendary creature, and your commander is most likely a legendary creature.
Yeah,
cool.
Also gives it indestructible, which makes it really hard to get rid of. So if you got one of those commanders you kind of want to stick around and deal that combat damage every turn, keeps it really safe. The thing I've heard about the Lord of the Rings set, because there's a lot of huge Tolkien fans who play Magic the Gathering. Like they're very invested. They've read like not only all of the books, but they've read The Hobbit, they've read the Silmarillion, like they've read absolutely everything. And everyone who's played the set, myself included, I'm a bit of a Tolkien nut. The flavor of it and like the construction of it is so perfect. Like it perfectly balances the feeling of playing Magic and the things that you like about playing Magic with the feeling of Lord of the Rings and the story of Lord of the Rings. Hey, that looks sweet.
We also got a list card here as well, which is pretty weird. Dark Suspicions, 2 black at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep. That player loses 1 life for each card in their hand, more than you have in your hand.
So this is a weird thing that Wizards have started doing to get more old cards into circulation is they throw in cards from not the set. So this is not a Lord of the Rings card
like
as
that
just
one
like a
as well.
bonus card.
That's
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly
yeah,
right.
yeah,
So
Genius, yeah.
just like a bonus card that they can have a reprint of without having to put in a new frame.
Yeah, these like art cards. My partner is obsessed with them.
I've put a bunch of them up on my walls actually.
Yeah, they're
just
just
like
really
stuck
nice to
them
look
up.
at.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, really cool display items. Probably Mount Doom's the most the biggest high value one so far.
Definitely a hit. We got
That's another one from the scene as well. Yeah.
That's out.
Camera died.
Well, we're just overhead camera now. That's it.
We got Shalom is like the voice of this podcast now.
Oh, my favorite card, food.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like the whole set is based around that
The
kind of
food
mechanic.
mechanic,
So,
yeah.
For example, here you go. So whenever one or more halflings attack, create a food, and it's a way to gain a ton of life.
Okay.
I like that food token that you just opened over there, Darcy. The one with the sort of like stew that the hobbits are making.
Yeah.
I don't like. There's another food token from this set that's like someone Shelob has captured, like this, and it's wrapped in spiderweb. Like it's a
Yeah,
corpse
right.
that's wrapped in
so
spiderwebs.
gross.
It's so disgusting looking.
It's
I don't like looking at it.
I'm hackles this there and back again.
Oh, this is a really cool, like, very sneaky thing they've done. They did not buy the IP for The Hobbit. They only bought the IP for Lord of the Rings, so they could not print a card that said like Smaug on it. So this is how they got around it. This is a token that you make, so it represents the idea of Smaug. Oh, that's a super high value one. It's like $30. It makes a Smaug card, but the Smaug itself is not the card. It's like a weird thing that Magic does with these things called tokens, but they got around using the IP by having a token that said Smaug instead of the card. Very sneaky.
This is probably one of the strongest cards in the set to be printed because it's super relevant in that CEDH format that I was talking about.
Yep.
Really competitive format.
Also modern. It's just super modern playable, I've heard. And
yeah, generally with like, all of these products coming out, we were talking about product overload earlier, how, people are super overwhelmed with the amount of product that's coming out. There's usually like only 1 or 2 cards, maybe in every second set that's relevant in really high-powered Commander.
Yep.
And this is one of those very limited cards that's actually relevant to the highest-powered Commander.
That's dope. We'll strengthen our pre-built decks. We'll do one with just the pre-built, and then we'll like roll a dice to pick the first one.
Well, I mean, we have an episode about how to upgrade pre-constructed decks.
Oh, cool.
So
we'll have to use that.
yeah,
you
we'll
gotta
use that
listen
as the
in.
guideline for sure.
Saruman, the Stinky. We got Legolas here as well. The art is just beautiful.
Oh, nasty
Yeah.
end. Jacob has one of those.
That scene is so good.
Hey.
Uh,
That was cool.
Oh, the Nazguls are
I
pretty
saw
strong.
they were pretty popular.
Yeah.
I was looking at like prices and popular cards and all that
The
sort
cool
Yeah.
thing about the Nazgul is they did 9 different arts
Yeah, I
for
saw that.
the Nazgul,
yeah,
which is
it's a real
really
collector
cool.
piece. Each of them are going for about
hold on.
$25 now.
Oh, nice. Oh, I'm realizing how much of a different world Pokemon is because you just said hollow.
Yeah. What are they called? Like, what are you guys
Foil
called?
is what we refer to it as.
Foil.
Foil.
Makes more sense.
Yeah,
There's more that
foily.
it is foil, not like holographic. So,
All right,
yeah.
we'll do a pack war of who gets the best pull in the collector's pack?
Yeah, cool.
All right. I'm hoping for another Orchid Bowmasters.
That's definitely the most gas. I'm trying to think what else is really expensive. I know the Witch King of Angmar is quite expensive. Definitely the Nazgul are a good pull as well, which is funny because they're uncommon. It's classic sort of Wizards thing.
teeth opening because the pack is.
Yeah, these packs are really, really tough. I think
They
they've
are.
swapped to a kind of plastic that's like more sustainable somehow. I forget
I
what
hope
they've
so.
done with it, but
That's cool. I didn't hear about that.
but much harder to open.
Backwards. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, this is this Mirkwood backed here. This is strong in pauper.
Yeah, right.
That's true.
It's actually
Ah.
one of my partners is going to build the squirrel, the Chatterfang.
Oh, great in a Chatterfang
It's
deck.
very good in
Absolutely amazing in a
Chatterfang.
Chatterfang deck.
Are they usually supposed to be like that?
In the collector
Sometimes,
packs,
yeah,
they're
collector packs.
two-sided.
Yeah, that's cool.
Super helpful.
All right, we'll go one by one, I guess. Mirkwood. Everyone?
Torment of Golem. Grahavens.
Old Man Willow was really good in sealed, actually. It's really strong.
White Hand.
You
March
got
from the Black Gate.
Foily Mountain.
Swamp. Also reminds me of Jacob.
Oh, you got the Barad Door. I got
that
the
might be
display
worth a bit.
parrot. Barad Door is actually really good, just mana sync in mono black.
Yeah.
Just got the Shalob.
Shalob's worth a bit.
Chorus.
Is it really?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. People are trying
The
to build it as a
Gaffer?
commander.
Oh, isn't that
Gaffer.
meant to be like Frodo's granddad or something?
The old Gaffer is Sam's granddad. I'm
Sam's
pretty sure.
granddad.
Yeah. He's like tells all these stories. He's supposed to be like 120 or something.
Yeah, right.
Give me the counter kills. Oh, this is a huge hit. This is really strong in Commander. This is Manamo School at Water's Edge, but the alternate.
the Folks,
yeah.
they've done this a few times. They've printed like it's the same function as the card that already exists, but they've given it a Lord of the Rings
It's like,
name.
see how they've got
Yeah,
the,
cool.
the name of what the card really is in Magic, but then like the flavor name
Yeah.
from Commander or like Magic.
I know for a fact there's a card.
Faramir.
They've reprinted Bajuka.
Oh,
Bog.
that's
Ooh.
huge.
Oh.
That's at least like
It's got to be like $50.
$90?
I
No,
think
I reckon it's more
it's
than
come
that.
down a little bit because it's been reprinted, I think. But
Oh.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
right.
a big one. That's
Still a
big
huge
one.
hit.
Yeah.
Still a huge hit. Samwise.
Samwise
And
is
then,
not a good
I
one.
got the Sauron.
Hey. What else
Lord
we
of
got
the
here?
Rings.
Orcish Bowman.
Another
okay,
Orcish
yeah,
Bowmasters.
I think Darcy's won this one.
I
But,
think Darcy
Yeah.
won the pack for sure. I mean, I'm pretty happy with Manamo School
Gandalf
of Water's
as well.
Edge.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Play Gandalf.
Very good.
I think you've
the
won.
I think so.
Orcish Bowmasters, Barad-dûr, and what was the other one we just opened that was really good? Oh,
The Ancient Tomb.
reprint. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like easily $100 pack there.
That's
if
sick.
more.
Very good.
Yeah, cool.
I love the Lord Sauron though. That's so cool. The art on that card is bananas.
Yeah.
Sauron as
So
a character's
brutal.
sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So cool.
The armor is just really hectic.
Yeah.
I love it. It's
Yeah.
fantastic.
And where they cut the finger off.
Set the line
Love
for
that
you,
scene.
Jacob. Well, thanks for coming on board.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it a lot. So I'm really excited to see where you guys go with it, and what you can do with it. And yeah, we'll be with you to support you along the way and chat about things. And if I don't get around to my emails, you just keep doing what you're doing and just keep bumping it up.
I'll occasionally message the Instagram and I'll get a reply
please
there.
do. It's a good reminder for me. So yeah.
No, seriously, from both of us, like it's so cool. We said it earlier that like, you know, we're getting recognition from you guys, real game company that wants to support the content that Walt and I make.
And a local company as well. Like we're literally like we record at my place in Reservoir, which is for those who are not familiar with Melbourne, like 5 minutes drive down High Street here. So it's super cool to be supported by you guys, and also like super early on for you guys to jump in there, because it's meant that we're not really like making loads of money yet, but we're not losing money really.
Yeah.
And it's in large part because you guys supported us in
Gotta
distributing.
fuel it.
And
Yeah.
I went to high school with Jack. He was in a couple of year levels above me. I was friends with his little bro, but there's some like cool little connections that we have, and it's cool that like the community is coming together and supporting. And we were just talking about it earlier over coffee, that it's about supporting each other and making the Australian environment just bigger and better.
Yeah.
And you guys are doing that really well.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. So yeah, pop on over to palmsoffgaming.com.au. Thanks for checking out. If you're listening, if you're watching, even better. But yeah, giving us shameless plug again. Where can people find you? Extensions, websites, whatever.
Every
Discords.
platform, just about. So Spotify, Apple Podcasts, pretty much every podcast platform you can think of, we're on there.
TikTok as well, at Get Commanded.
Yep, Twitter also at Get Commanded. And
Twitch at Get Commanded. We'll try and stream some more.
Coming soon to Twitch for sure. And definitely check out the show notes of just any episode of the podcast. We've got all our socials linked in there.
Yeah.
Ways you can find the decks that me and James build. They're all online as well.
Yeah. And join the Discord as well. We've got a really cool Discord of our play group. And like I was on there last night playing CDH with a bunch of people. If you want to see what Walt and I do, if you want to join in and just watch, you can watch us stream. It's a really, really great environment. And we have judges as well.
We
Huge
do.
shout out to the judges.
If you're confused about a question because you just picked up the game, the judges are there to help.
Yeah.
Yeah, sick.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy. Cheers.
Thank you.